Hello, Evil Morty is definitely one of the most exciting characters that made viewers wait for his appearance in every new episode. And that's because Evil Morty has not only a smart, but also a complex character, as well as a fascinating story. That's why, right now, we will explore his story, as well as understand the motivations behind his actions. Let's start with the first appearance of the Evil Morty in the series, which was really exciting. It happened in the 10th episode of the first season. Our Rick is accused of serial murder of Ricks from other universes. To avoid punishment for a crime he did not commit, our heroes decide to escape and find the real killer. Thanks to Rick's cleverness, they manage to track down the criminal's signal. They quickly head to the source of the signal, and there a massive spectacle awaits them. A crazy-sized dome, laden with hundreds of Mortys suspended throughout its entirety and subjected to horrible tortures, which are necessary to supposedly hide Rick the Killer's brainwaves. But in fact, this suffering of poor young men had a radically different purpose. The unfortunate young men suffering in this place are subjected to horrible torments, but that's only one of the tricks. The evil Morty, who lost his Rick or simply got rid of him, devised a cunning plan to trick our grandfather C137. He's created a robotic replica of Rick that he controls from afar. It's a clever and safe solution that allows Morty to operate covertly, avoiding risk and danger, and not giving away his involvement in the grim events that are developing around him. Consequently, this tome formed from the endless torment of various Mortys is truly shocking. Suddenly it comes to mind that only Rick, indifferent and selfish, is really capable of such acts. It is not inconsistent with his character. Our grandfather's statements aren't particularly reassuring either, and even he, vulnerable and full of love for his grandson more than the other Ricks, could have done something like this, if only with more humane actions, avoiding the use of so much Morty.
I wouldn't do this, it's barbaric overkill. I mean, you could accomplish the same result with like 5 Mortys and a jumper cable.
Thus, the most horrifying thing about this situation is not the huge facility filled with the torment of thousands of unfortunate people, but the fact that it's all being run by a sinister Morty whose life is not put together in the best way. Yes, the creation of the dome probably came from the side of his predecessor grandfather, but this Morty, after he lost his Rick and created himself a robot grandfather, didn't want to free all the innocent victims. Instead, he used the development to keep Rick's criminal image. Thus, this villainously clever Morty is introduced to us in the first 5 seasons of the series. Under the guise of his Rick, the evil Morty was able to draw the brilliant C137 scientist into his trap. After getting an unsuspecting Rick, he scanned his brain along with all his secrets and, of course, information about the complete structure of the Rick Citadel, which our scientist built years ago before going to the Smith family in another universe. Here's where the speculation comes in. This Morty with the eye patch was familiar with our Rick's history before watching his flashbacks. That is why he decided to carry out this grand plan. It is unknown where and how he got the knowledge of our great vigilante's history, but he most likely heard it from his previous Rick. It was then that he realized that it was the C137 that would lead him to his goal. But what was his goal? We're about to find out. The creators of the series perfectly conveyed the whole story of Rick and Morty. Every time these characters appear, a lot of questions arise and make you think about different important things. Even after the end of the 5th season, the most fascinating episode with Rick can be considered the stories from the Rick Citadel in the 7th episode of the 3rd season. It reminds us of how there is a division in our society between rich and poor. Although people in our world are mostly similar to each other in abilities and skills, in the Citadel, all the characters are Ricky and Morty. They are identical to each other, but they are each limited in their abilities and have a different standard of living in this rotten city. One talented scientist pushes buttons on an assembly line, and the other runs that factory. Even though they are both the same in ability and intelligence, Evil Morty experiences all the injustice and rot of the Citadel. He is fed up with the countless Rickies who are arrogant and narcissistic, so he decides to seize power by becoming president after the old Citadel was almost completely destroyed by Rick C137 and begins to rebuild. Using his cunning, persuasive talent and the art of hypocrisy, he gains the support of the regular Rick and Morty. After he becomes king of the city, he decides to get rid of all the Citadel council members he dislikes. This plan was conceived and carried out by evil Morty alone. No one knew the true nature of this man, who presented himself as a peace-loving politician seeking to destroy the divisions between the inhabitants of the Citadel. Only a few people knew the truth, one of whom was thrown out into outer space after a failed attempt to assassinate evil Morty, as well as many others who were no match for evil Morty. Our villain is a skilled hypocrite and master manipulator who has fooled even us viewers. When we watched this episode, we actually believed in the words of the first Morty president, as if his speech was sincere. Thanks to his persuasiveness, he achieved his goal, realizing only part of a grand plan to overthrow the established order in the Citadel of the Reeks. Once in power, the new leader makes sweeping changes. He rewrites the laws and rules of the Citadel, starting by visibly simplifying life for thousands of scientists and young people in yellow t-shirts. But everything changes after the last episode of the 5th season of the animated series, in which the new leader's journey comes to an end. It is at this time that the latest events unfold. Our main characters parted in the 9th episode of the 5th season. However, already in the next episode, they met again and went straight to the Citadel. Their goal is to fix the age of Morty, who, using an aging serum, turned into a 40-year-old man, reminiscent of spineless Jerry. However, Rick and Morty had no idea what awaited them afterward. After the heroes inspected the Citadel's new state, the evil Morty invited them to dinner and analyzed Rick's brain again to refine the details on the central finite curve device, a brilliant scientist's great design that limits interdimensional travel for the portal cannons of all Reeks falling under its influence. Brutal Morty is amazing in his meticulous preparation to meet the smartest man in the multiverse, taking into account all the smallest details. He surrounded himself with a powerful force field, protecting him from any damage, provided Rick with information about destroying the ultimate curve when it was too late to do anything about it, hacked into all the portal devices in the city, inciting the Citadel residents to use them, and thus filled his ship with the blood of dead Rick and Morty. He conducted all of this in an exceptionally skillful and cunning manner. When he needed the Reeks not to open their broken portals, he simply asked them not to. And guess what happened? They started doing it. Genius. Recursion is a creation of the universe. And so our Rick lies, covered in the rocks on which he created his multiverse work of art. The evil Morty destroys the central finite curve and flies off into the sunset. A huge pump filled with the blood of those he hated launches him into an interdimensional portal beyond the central finite curve. The series' greatest villain wraps up his story in a very impressive way, and he does so to a superb musical accompaniment. Evil Morty played a very important role in the animated series. He showed us Rick's true nature, partially revealing his self-destructive and hopeless side. The scientist turned out to be not only a cold-blooded nihilist, but also a vulnerable, morally traumatized, and desperate man. By destroying the central finite curve, the evil Morty also destroyed Rick's philosophy, setting the point of no return and laying the foundation for a new era of the great Rick and Morty series.